Trostani Discordant versus Kaidel Chosen of Krufix. Yeah, we can definitely keep that. We have plenty of ramp to get into our commander, as well as a skull clamp, so we'll be able to draw plenty of cards as well. Okay. Yeah, I was 2 minutes behind on the clock previously because the site that I bought some cards for a new deck decided to finally do the automated trade service when I was in the middle of the game. I waited for I don't know how long, and then as soon as I start a game, up it pops. So that was just unlucky. I decided to get the trade over and done with very quickly, or as quickly as I could. But after the trade was over, it was smooth sailing, so I don't really know what my opponent's complaining about here. It's yet another individual that wants to come and cry at a complete stranger online. So, welcome to the internet. Now, if Magic Online's replay function wants to work, I'm going to try and show you the game that I was trying to put together. This is actually an Oketra, what is it called? God Eternal Oketra deck that I've been trying to get working. And I'm going to attempt to show you what exactly it is that our opponent got salty about. So at this point, our opponent had cast a Preordain, and I did leave them waiting a minute or two because that trade came up and I had to get that shifted out of the way. But after this, you'll be able to tell by the clock that it is smooth sailing from this point onwards. So we'll just see how far we can get here. I'm ahead on lands all the time here, so I don't really make use of the tithe. Our opponent goes for a Kiora's Follower here. We get into an Oreskos, which we won't be able to make use of either. Bear in mind that we have lots of creatures in the deck because we want to trigger Oketra and get lots of 4/4 zombies. But this is before Oketra's release, so we can't actually make use of any of these cards yet. I was just seeing the kind of draws that we get into and how the curve functions and all the rest of it. It's not really a fair test of the deck, but it gives me some information that I won't be able to get otherwise. And then Jace the Mind Sculptor comes in and bounces our Anthem creature. So we just decide to play our last land and go in for the Benelish Marshal again. And then if our opponent ramps at all, we can tithe if we want to get an extra planes. And they just go for the commander and bounce with the Benelish Marshal again. And then as you can see, I go for the tithe at the end of my opponent's turn here. And we grab ourselves a plains to play next turn, and then of course draw into another plains, so don't think we're going to be making use of that Oreskos Explorer this game. But because our opponent's got down a Curian Ranger, that is a great combo enabler, even if it's just with something like a Kiora's Follower. So we want rid of all the cards on our opponent's side of the field here, so we decide to go for a Wrath of God. And our opponent paused a little bit after that, so I think they were kind of working out whether or not they should scoop there and then, but they decided to play on. Went for a Fate Seal on Jace the Mind Sculptor. I can't remember if they put the card on top or not. But they go for a Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which I was elated to see. We drew into the Spawning Pit, like I say. I can't remember if we actually, if our opponent put that on top or not. But obviously we get the planes down. And it's just a case of getting down our Anthem creature again. I'm thinking if Jace goes to bounce it, then we can get down the Stonecloaker and bounce this back to our hand in response to that. And then we've got a 3/2 in the air that we can maybe take out the Mind Sculptor with. So that was the plan for this turn. And they go for a loot with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which will flip it over. And then the Vryn's Prodigy gives our Anthem a -2 to its power, so that's only a 1/3 now. And then they go for the Brainstorm with Jace because they don't see this as much of a threat anymore. So that was okay as far as I was concerned. Get down another Forest, and then they go for the Birds of Paradise, which I wasn't happy to see because it's a flying blocker. but I still decided to go for the Stone Cloaker and bounce the Benelish Marshal. And this is the point at which my opponent quits, which I couldn't really make heads or tails of because they've got plenty of mana. They can save their Mind Sculptor for another turn by blocking with the Birds of Paradise. Maybe they forgot that this had flying. But unless they block the Stone Cloaker with the Birds of Paradise, we'll be able to take out the Mind Sculptor. They obviously know where this thing is headed, and maybe they just didn't want to lose their birds. I don't know. I mean, surely they can get into another land with the Mind Sculptor, so at this point they just decided to throw their toys out of the pram and quit on us. And yeah, there we go. There's the message that they sent us. So the please play faster was due to us taking up that trade. I mean, yeah, fair enough. Maybe, I mean, they didn't know that we were trading and that we had been waiting for the trade, and it just so happened that it popped up when we were in the middle of the game. So, alright, fair enough, I'll give you that. And then we got a congratulations, oh great, thank you very much, followed by a bitter little, the better opening hand wins again. You know, it's the equivalent of nice top deck, bro. You know, that kind of, well, like I say, it's a bitter and a miserable concession. But there we go, that was the previous game to the one that you just saw. And after this, you know what happened. We had them quit on turn 0 because, I don't know, maybe they didn't like the look of our deck or something like that. Who knows? I've given up trying to question the mentality of these people. They're obviously troubled individuals. Let's try and get a real game going, shall we? Trostani Discordant versus Neheb the Eternal. That hand is not good, but we do have Miri's Guile, which might help us, and we also have fetches to shuffle the top 3 if we don't like the look of what we're seeing. We will keep that, I think. So we'll go for a Savannah on turn 1. Or do we want a Savannah? Yeah, I think we're actually best getting into our basics as soon as we can, because our opponent might play a Blood Moon. Something you do have to watch out for with mono red players. Trostani Discordant is an Anthem commander. Comes out with 2/1/1 white soldier lifelinking tokens, and you gain control of all your creatures at the beginning of the end step. So 1/4 in Celestia for 5 mana. Have a look at the top 3 and see if we can get some ramp going here. Cultivate and a Plains. Yeah, let's go Wrath, Cultivate and draw into that Plains. We can play the Voice of Resurgence, and that means that these fetches can go after dual lands now. I don't know how much use we're going to get out of Voice of Resurgence this game. Tends to be catered more towards control decks, especially blue decks. Neheb the Eternal is a 5 mana mono red 4/6 with Afflict 3. That is, whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 3 life. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you add red for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Okay, do we want to get into another land? No, I think we just go for Cultivate here, and that is another means of shuffling those things away. Now we're safe to go for the Savannah, I think. And this actually means we can probably go for Trostani next turn. And in we go with the Voice of Resurgence. Just get 2 points of damage on our opponent, there's no reason not to. And then in comes a Solemn Simulacrum, so that is ramp and a card draw when it dies. Solemn Simulacrum arguably goes in most commander decks. Glare of Subdual might be good. Yeah, let's draw into the Glare of Subdual. And then we'll get down our commander. That will give the Voice of Resurgence a buff. And that means that we can swing in without any fear of trading the Solemn Simulacrum. They might just block for the card draw. They've got 4 cards in hand. No, they just decide to grab the card draw now. The only means of ramp that red has, apart from the sorceries that add mana to their pool, is artifacts, and That is the reason that we went for the Glare of Subdual. They might go for things like Thran Dynamo and Sol Ring. We've obviously already seen an Ever-Flowing Chalice. And there we go, there's that Thran Dynamo. So we can choose to tap our creatures. We don't mind tapping Trostani Discordant because she's not exactly going to lay a bunch of damage on our opponent. Oh, and Temple of the False God as well, so they can still afford to get out Neheb, even if we tap down both their artifacts. And there's a Burnished Heart, so they can afford that also. Let's grab ourselves a Marsh Flats to shuffle those lands away. And it's just Glare of Subdual, I think. We've already got a stop on our opponent's upkeep, so we can tap these things down. And our opponent will have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana in lands alone next turn, so I don't know how much tapping down the artifacts is going to hurt them. So I think it's a good idea. They've only got 3 cards in hand. So I think I'm actually going to tap down their Neheb, just in case they get haste on it. I think I'll tap down their Thran Dynamo as well. This Ever-Flowing Chalice is only 1 extra piece of mana. And they have rightly blocked and sacrificed the Burnished Heart in response. So that is exactly what we assumed they were going to do. Sometimes opponents do forget to do that, so it's always worth swinging in just in case they forget to do that. And at the beginning of the upkeep we are going to Glare of Subdual their Thran Dynamo. We tap down our Trostani Discordant to tap their Thran Dynamo. Like I say, they can still get their Neheb down, but we can tap it. Now they might get down something like a Swiftfoot Boots or a Lightning Greaves to give it Shroud or Hexproof, and that would stop us in our tracks with that. I'm just hoping the extra point of mana from the Ever-Flowing Chalice isn't relevant. Okay, well, there's something. So we have to sacrifice 4 lands, and this deals 4 damage to every creature, which is all of the creatures we have in play. So this is, you tend to get spiky Neheb players. They tend to be spikier than not. I'm actually going to sack the 2 dual lands because they do have 3 mana held up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went for a Blood Moon after this. Okay, we get into a basic anyway. There's a Nature's Law as well. So I think going after the Nature's Law is okay. We're going to tap down our opponent's Thran Dynamo on their upkeep again. So we are not going to swing in. We'll get down that Windswept Heath. I'm not sure I want to crack it yet. We'll see what's on top of our library with Mirri's Guile first. And they've tapped down the Thran Dynamo for mana during their upkeep, but are not using it, so not sure why they did that. And down comes Neheb, so we need to get into an answer sooner rather than later. Some spot removal would be fine. Okay, Mana Crypt is really good. Eldamri's Call is great as well. We can get down Rampaging Baloths. Yeah, I don't really like shuffling away the Flooded Strand, but I think it's a necessity at this point, so we'll just get into the Mana Crypt. Okay, our opponent paused momentarily there. I'm not sure what they were thinking about. Hopefully they weren't considering a concession. We need to crack our Windswept Heath, so we will see 3 fresh cards off the top with Mirri's Guile next turn. And with that we can get down our Rampaging Baloths. And this means that we can tap down both the Thran Dynamo and our opponent's Neheb. Now do we want to... Yeah, I think we do want to tap down the Thran Dynamo. We don't know what our opponent has in hand. They've only got 3 cards, but they could really be anything. So let's tap Neheb with the Elemental. They can't swing in with Neheb, and if they can't swing in, they can't gain lots of mana and do lots of fun and or obnoxious things. A Sunbird's Invocation, Any standard players will know what this does. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's CMC. You may cast a card revealed this way with CMC X or less without paying its mana cost. Let's take a look on top of our library. This exiles power 5 or greater. That doesn't help us. So let's go Crater Hoof, Celestia Charm, and a Plains. We do want to get into as many land drops as possible. One, to recoup some of our losses from that wildfire, but also to get the Rampaging Baloth triggers. And let's go for Trostani Discordant. Now we might just be playing into a board wipe here, but there's really not a whole lot else we can do at this point, so we will just go in at our opponent with both of those. And if our opponent can't do anything about our board state next turn, then we go wide on them. Let's tap down the Neheb with Trostani. And we'll also tap down the 2 mana rocks as well. Then if our opponent gets a creature down, we can tap it with the Beast. Okay, that's a War's Toll, an enchantment. Whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, tap all lands that player controls. If a creature an opponent controls attacks, all creatures that opponent controls attack if able. I mean, that's fine with us. They're just looking for something good off of the Sunbird's Invocation here, I think. And they have the choice of, well, they can't do that. And I think it has to cost less. Oh no, it can be equal to or less by the looks of it. So they get down a dragon. But we can tap that down with our beast, so it looks like we win next turn. And then they lightning bolt. What are they lightning bolting? One of our soldiers. Well, we'll see what they get off the Sunbird's Invocation before I respond to that. Yep, they just reveal a Chandra, which they can't do anything with. So they have to discard their hand here, and at this point we will tap down their dragon with our beast token. And the Glare of Subdual has pretty much won us this game. And there we go, that's that. All we had to do next turn. Let's see what the 3 cards are. We knew about Crater Hoof and Celestia Charm. Probably would have cast the Mirari's Wake. Our opponent would have had a lot of trouble dealing with enchantments, and that would have ramped us, and it's an Anthem as well. But yeah, all we were going to do next turn is turn everything sideways, and our opponent couldn't block thanks to our Glare of Subdual. So we managed to fight our way through a wildfire. That was a pretty good win for us. I hope you all enjoyed it. That was Trostani Discordant versus Neheb the Eternal. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.